All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Dayna Gray, and I'm the president of the Bucks County Association of Realtors. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our Realtor Town Hall with the Bucks County Commissioners. BCAR is hosting this event with our partner, the Suburban Realtors Alliance. I'd like to thank our county commissioners for joining us here today. The last time we welcomed them for an event like this was on May 1st of last year. That was a difficult and uncertain time for all of us. But amidst the shutdown and quarantine, Realtors showed their resilience and adaptability. We quickly implemented non-in-person business tactics, and upon reopening, a new set of safety protocols and best practices, which kept the real estate industry from coming to a grinding halt and continued the market moving forward, because that's who we are. Fortunately, things have improved a lot since then. Today, we'll hear from each of the commissioners about how the county is working to counter the effects of COVID-19 and get us back to normal. We'll cover other real estate topics as well. Just a couple quick housekeeping notes. Today's program is being recorded and the video will be shared with BCAR members. There will be a Q&A session later in the program. If you want to submit a question, you can do so using Zoom's Q&A function. We also received some questions ahead of time via the registration form. Now I'd like to turn it over to Jamie Ridge, President and CEO of the Suburban Realtors Alliance, who will get the program started. Jamie?
All right. Good morning. Thank you, Dayna.
Sure.
I have the great pleasure of introducing our Bucks County Commissioners this morning. Chairwoman Diane Ellis-Marseglia.
Good morning.
Good morning. Vice Chairman Bob Harvie.
Morning.
And Commissioner Jean DiGirolamo. We are very thankful for the leadership you're providing the county, especially over an incredibly difficult year. We also understand that you're very busy and we appreciate the time you're spending with us this morning. With that said, we're looking forward to hearing updates about the work you're doing for the county. As Dayna mentioned, we'll take questions from our members after your presentations are over, and I'll present those questions to you. So at this point, I will turn it over to Chairwoman Marseglia.
Thank you, and thanks for having us. You know, I think that you are one of the forgotten groups that have struggled through this COVID pandemic. Realtors have had to be very creative, very strong. You would not think a realtor could work from home, but you have found a way to show houses, do things like that. So thank you for holding it together that way. And I'm hoping this is going to be a great spring and summer season as we turn things around. I guess I thought that each of us would just talk a little bit about an update on a non-COVID issue with the county, but you mentioned COVID. So, you know, maybe we can each say one thing about COVID too, and then happy to answer any questions on it. So I am the chairperson of the commissioners, but I am also a social worker. So I have a tendency to always want to talk about some social service issues. So I will do that. I guess it's also important to say that this is now like 13 months that Bob, Jean, and I have been together as commissioners. So we have had to straddle a pandemic and wanting to make a lot of changes in the county, and we've tried to do some of that. And a lot of that has happened in social services. One of the main things that started to happen when the pandemic started is we needed to get people out of the jail. It was not a good place to be in jail if you didn't need to be. So we started to try to empty the jail out. And, you know, at one point, I think we went from about 1,100 to maybe 500 or 600 people, which is something we need to talk about in the future. Are there too many people who don't need to be in jail? Because that is 97% funded by property taxes. But the one thing that happened is it brought to light the fact that there were people with mental illness in our jail. And that was brought to light because when police arrested people who had a mental illness, even though there was COVID, they needed to bring those people somewhere. The hospitals that you might traditionally use for people with mental illness were full, especially because of COVID. They had to allow for distancing. But those people with complicated problems were being refused entry to those hospitals. So what did the police do but bring them to the jail? Eventually, that did get some public attention, which is kind of important because that's how we can begin to change things. So in an effort to keep mentally ill people out of jail, we are doing a few things. We will start with Judge Boylan as the primary judge, a mental health court, hopefully by June. She is working right now, getting the things set up that she needs in the courtroom for that. We are getting caseworkers involved in mental health so that they can start to take cases that go to mental health court. For those of you who don't know how that works, it'll be just like a drug court. And if a police arrest you, the district attorney would agree that if you abide by the regulations of the judge, they will drop the charges. And those regulations are usually making sure you go to therapy every week, making sure you're taking your medication, coming into the courtroom once a week to report on how you're doing. We also went out, Judge Boyle and I and a few caseworkers went and saw a sort of a recovery house, but this would be a recovery house for people who have a mental health problem so that they don't have to go to jail. Another thing that we are doing is we have very few women in our work release program. Now that we are building a women's unit of its own and the women from work release can go there in the future, we will be rehabilitating the women's work release building, which is on the grounds of the jail, into a 15-bed unit for mental illness. So this would be for those police who find someone and the person is somewhat aggressive and they're caught between, I can't let this person go, but can they go to, should I really bring them to jail? They will have a bed there. It is very difficult to make civil commitments today. So this is going to be, really a safe spot that people can go to. In the meantime, we've also hired what's called a boundary spanner. That person works in the jail and is constantly looking for placements and alternatives for people with mental health problems. Social services in general is a little different. In the course of the pandemic, we also moved all of our social service agencies into the administration building. Mental health used to be in Warrington, drug and alcohol was in Warrington, children and youth was in Furlong, area agency on aging was in the borough, but they're all in here now. And why that's so important is a lot of times there's overlap. You may have grandparents who are involved with area agency on aging who are taking care of children that have been brought into care by children and youth, and perhaps one of the parents are being helped with drug and alcohol and another with mental health. Well, now we're all talking to each other. They're running into each other in the elevator. We're having meetings in rooms here and able to really work on problems. The next goal is going to be able to get us to share data so that we know when a parent is in jail and the child is with children and youth. So a lot of times that stuff gets lost and it really can hurt the treatment of people who are in Bucks County. We also just opened up something we call the Hub. It's downstairs on the first floor of the administration building, and you can walk in or you can call or you can reach it by email. And it's for any social service kind of problem, but they will answer anything. I know they've gotten calls on where's my stimulus check, to where's my vaccine, to, my daughter needs to have some drug and alcohol treatment. So, that's a great option. We didn't have that before. People were kind of trying to figure out where to turn on their own. So now we have someone in there from 9 to 5 every day. So that's real important. And the one last thing I will talk about that we were able to do, I think we're all thrilled with, is we're calling it a co-responders program. One day there will be, I hope, enough money that we can put this in every township, but right now it's just in Ben Salem. So we hired 2 what are called co-responders. These are social workers that are embedded in the police department there. So they go out either with the police or sometimes on their own to those calls where there is an elderly person struggling to have, to make ends meet, or that is having an emotional or mental health issue. They'll go out to mental health issues. They will deal with racial or ethnic issues that are happening, of intimidation in the community. And we're getting really good feedback. After 2 years, it is anticipated that Ben Salem will assume responsibility for those co-responders, and then we can move on to trying this in another community. That also will help to reduce the mental health population in jail, but it takes that burden off police officers who are trying to enforce the law, not be psychologists and social workers. So that's some of the things going on. I guess the quick thing I will say about COVID is, if you don't know already, we have all 3 community colleges open for vaccinations. We have the old H&M store at the Neshaminy Mall opened. We will open in Jamison at the old Giant shortly, and we have another opportunity for a place for vaccines up at St. Luke's in Quakertown. And with that, I will pass this off to Commissioner Harvie.
Okay. Thank you, appreciate it. In terms of trying to think of what Commissioner Marseglia didn't cover, I'll pick up sort of where she left off in terms of COVID. We have definitely seen, especially over the the holiday season, we definitely saw a spike like the rest of the nation did. Leading up to that point, up until about mid-October, late October, the Bucks County Health Department had the most extensive and comprehensive contact tracing program in the state. We were contacting about 97% of the people in the county who tested positive. And contact tracing isn't just about, knowing someone's name and address. You're asking deep probing questions to try and get to the bottom of, how the person became infected, who they came into contact with, maybe before they were symptomatic, but when they still could have been, shedding virus and passing it on. And then how do we reach out to those people? It really is almost like detective work. And that information that we gathered starting about a year ago and continuing up until in earnest, continuing up until October, although we're still doing contact tracing for any situations involving schools, whether it's staff or students, has given us a tremendous amount of data that we've been able to use in terms of setting guidelines for businesses and giving advice to people in terms of how to run, their store, how to run a daycare center, how to run schools. The CDC today is announcing that 3 feet distance inside schools is safe. That is something that our health department announced in August because of the information we had gathered and using information from around the world, quite frankly. Studies from Europe as well as the World Health Organization allowed us to make, our health department to make that determination. And so we've had schools, especially the Catholic schools and private schools, that have been functioning under that system since August and September, and have done very, very well. And we're confident that will happen in public schools as well, because we know that's a very contentious issue. And people obviously are, justifiably worried about their children, worried about sending them into schools, and certainly teachers are worried and other school staff are worried. We started a program here about 5 weeks ago, maybe 6 weeks ago now, working with the Bucks County Intermediate Unit on vaccinating a certain subgroup of education staff, particularly staff who worked with special needs children who were not really able to follow safety protocols, weren't able to wear masks, weren't able to practice social distancing. We focused on those couple thousand professionals because we understood that they had to be at work, very much like nurses and prison guards have to be at work, and they weren't as able to protect themselves because of the students they were dealing with. That program that we ran has become the model for what the state is doing now in terms of using intermediate units around the Commonwealth and vaccinating education professionals using the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. In fact, the governor is supposed to be visiting today, the IU here in Doylestown, just to see the site, which is still running, and using the company that we had hired here in Bucks. The state is now hired, and it's very much modeled on what we did here in Bucks County. So we're very proud of the efforts that we've had here in the county to help protect our residents, give some guidance to businesses and the individuals. We've had an economic resources portal up for almost a year now that we've updated whenever there was any kind of new guidance coming out of the state, whether it was the recent, like for example, the recent one about restaurants being able to expand their seating come April. Trying to keep up to date on that so that if people needed to find that resource, they could find it here. In terms of other things that we've done, and I think this, certainly we'll touch on real estate, especially maybe more the commercial real estate. We really came in, the 3 commissioners all have a commitment to protecting the environment. As Commissioner DiGirolamo has said, many times, this is really not a partisan issue. This is it's not a red issue or a blue issue. This is a green issue. And so we are committed to taking steps that we can as a county to moving us into a position where we're a leader in the state. We did some work on this last year, obviously between COVID and the election that we were running. A lot of the oxygen was sort of sucked out of the room. So we took whatever was left and we were focusing on some of these issues. Earlier this year, our Planning Commission published a model alternative energy ordinance, which was forwarded to all 54 municipalities. And what it does is it is essentially a model ordinance that addresses how property owners, developers, commercial, residential can construct buildings, it wouldn't matter what kind of structures they are, and where townships and boroughs can provide incentives to incorporate more of the, whether it's passive, green technology in terms of, it could just be orienting the building so that it faces the southern exposure, planting of vegetation in ways that keeps the properties shielded from cold winds in the winter and open and shields it from warmer sun rays in the summertime, to more active methods like building solar energy on top of the roofs or somewhere in the property using geothermal, things of that nature. A lot of our communities, well, I should say about half of the communities had something on the books when it came to alternative energy with their zoning. But most of those, I know this was true in Falls Township, where I was a supervisor, most of those were focused only on solar, and some of them were older. So they weren't necessarily as following as many of the best practices that we have now. So the energy ordinance that we put together for the county level was done really to benefit the townships and boroughs, that they didn't have to spend the money to have their solicitors go out and do the research and write everything. And so we provided that to everybody. I do know there are a couple townships that are looking to adopt those ordinances. And obviously they're free to model them however they want. They're free to adapt them to their needs. But I've been reaching out to community leaders to make sure that they know that we're a resource for that. We are also working with the Treasurer's Department here to work on a CPACE program. And the CPACE program would provide low interest loans to commercial property owners who want to make some kind of environmental retrofit to their buildings, whether it's dealing with how they're heating water or how they're generating electricity. What it does, it's a state-approved program. It was a state law, I believe, in 2018 that was passed. Montgomery County already has a CPACE in place, so we're looking to adopt one here. And one of the advantages is that, let's say that you decide you're a commercial property owner, you decide to purchase and place solar panels on the roof of your building. The loan for that, to pay for that, is actually extended through the life of those panels. So instead of getting a 5-year loan or 10-year loan from your bank, or adding it into your mortgage, you've now got, solar panels last about 30 years. You now have a 30-year loan, and the county helps in terms of collecting that. It's paid through your property taxes like a lien, and so it's not necessarily a separate payment that you make, and it stays with the property. So if that commercial property owner sells that property, that the lien basically, and people get nervous when you say lien, but the lien stays with that whoever the new owner is. They just continue making the payments until it's done. So that's something we are looking at. We're hoping that we can implement that in the next couple of months. I think that's kind of all the things we wanted to talk about. We are looking at doing some more large scale solar with some of our neighboring counties and having some early discussions on that. But those are still things that we're focused on. So I'll turn it over to Commissioner DiGirolamo.
Hey, thanks, Bob. Good morning, everyone. Good to be with you. I just want to thank, first starting out by thanking Jamie and Dayna for having us on, and the whole group and organization. Good to be with you. And first, I want to thank you for the good work that you do in our communities and here in Bucks County. And I think we all think that Bucks County is just a great place to live and work and raise a family. And certainly the work that you do as realtors is really, really important to making sure that continues and in a lot of ways gets better. So thank you for the good work that you do. Thank you also for the good work that you do to make the economy strong. You play a big part in that, and we realize that. And again, we very, very much appreciate it. So going back to the virus, and I know my colleagues talked a little bit about it, but boy, did it just turn everybody's world upside down. It really did. And I can assure you that here in Bucks County, I mean, we really did everything we could from the very beginning to keep everybody safe. The three commissioners, myself and Diane and Bob, were here every day in Doylestown. Every day we were here working together, and I thank them a lot of times. I mean, we've really worked very, very well together, especially when it comes to the virus and with everything else. I mean, we get elected, political parties aside, to govern. And, to be able to govern, you've got to be able to get along. And, I can assure everybody that, we got along very, very well. Just talk a little bit about what you do. I mean, there's a lot of things that are really important to you that make what you do, make your job a little bit easier. And certainly having safe communities is a big part of what we enjoy here in Bucks County. And we want to make sure that we continue to make the community safe. Having good schools is really, really important for what you do. And I think we do have good schools here in Bucks County. Not only a great public school system, but a private school system as well. And, people want to see the schools open, I think, for the most part. And, Commissioner Harvie mentioned about the IU and the people that work in the schools, and now the teachers are all getting vaccinated. And I think that's going to go a long way to be able to get the schools back open, the ones that aren't open, and get them open full time. And we hope that happens this year. That's really important for our quality of life here in Bucks County. Commissioner Marseglia touched a lot on the mental health situation here in Bucks County. And now I want to mention the addiction problem that we have here as well. The drug and alcohol problem, and that continues to be a major concern for the commissioners and everybody that's involved in health and human services here in Bucks County. We talked about the jail, and it's pretty obvious to me, and I think everybody else, that 3 out of 4 of the people that are incarcerated here in Bucks County, and it might be even greater than that, have a mental health issue, a drug and alcohol issue, or a combination of the two. And to be able to keep our community safe, because these people that are addicted are out in our communities committing crimes, and that kind of destroys our quality of life, because they're committing these crimes, not necessarily violent crimes, but crimes of breaking into homes, breaking into cars, shoplifting, and they're only doing it for one reason: to get money to buy their drugs. And let's not forget alcohol too, because alcohol continues, as far as I'm concerned, the #1 abused drug that we have here in Bucks County. So we need to get our hands on the addiction problem. Diane Rossetti, who is our director of our drug and alcohol programs here in Bucks County, and her staff have been doing a terrific job. And they've got a program right now that says if you've got a drug and alcohol addiction and you want to get help, and whether you have insurance or you're on medical assistance or Medicaid or have no insurance or can't pay, they're going to find a way to help you pay for it, and they're going to find a place for you to get into treatment. And we've made a commitment to do that with our budget here in the county. So, I mean, it wasn't a good year in 2020 as far as the number of deaths here in Bucks County from overdoses. We don't have the final report in yet, but it certainly looks like right now, preliminarily, there's going to be a substantial increase in the number of deaths in 2020 from 2019. And I think the coronavirus had a big impact on the rise in the number of deaths that happened here in Bucks County. So, if anybody needs help, if you know of somebody, please let us know. We have and again, call our drug and alcohol department here at the county, and we will absolutely find help for you, whether you have insurance or don't have insurance. And maybe just in closing a little bit of good news. I mean, we passed our budget back in December. And the 3 commissioners, I mean, we had a lot of challenges balancing this budget. We really do. We got a substantial amount of money, $112 million from the first stimulus package. but our hands were tied a lot on the ways we were allowed to spend it. So we did get a little bit creative in the way we spent our money. I mean, we tried to put it in the really good programs, helping local businesses out. And we were able to balance our budget with no tax increase. And again, that was very, very challenging for us, but the three of us were committed, especially during the pandemic, because when we raise taxes, we raise real estate taxes. And you know, that's not good for homeowners, not good for business people, commercial, industrial. So we were committed not to raise taxes, and we were able to make it work. We've just recently, from the most recent stimulus package that was just passed, I guess a couple weeks ago, we are going to receive from the federal government an additional almost $122 million. And I'm going to say that again, $122 million that Bucks County's going to receive. Now, we understand right now we're still trying to get our hands around on what we can spend the money on and what we can't. And I don't think that picture is really clear right now. But we do know that unlike the first stimulus package, when we had to spend the money for the most part in a 1 year time frame, in that 9 months time frame for when it was spent, I think we're going to have till the year 2024 to spend that money. So that'll give us a whole lot more flexibility in what we can use it for and where we're going to put it. But that no tax increase budget that we passed in December was really important for the three of us to make sure that happened, especially during a pandemic. So with that, I'm going to turn it, I guess, back over to Dayna, and I think we have opened it up for questions and answers.
Yeah, Dayna, I actually have a couple questions that I'd like to throw out to the commissioners. Hearing about that $122 million from the latest federal act, that is great news. And one of the questions that we've been hearing from our members is about rental assistance, because they have clients that obviously have been impacted by COVID. There are landlords that are also realtors that have been impacted by COVID. So this new round of rental assistance that's coming into the county, how can they find out about that? Is there some timeline in terms of when that can be utilized?
I mean, I guess we could go down the line and say a little bit. It's the Bucks County Emergency Rental Assistance Program. There's a portal right on the Bucks County website, but I checked, and if you just Google that, it does come up. And it will connect you. There's a form there that tenants can fill out or landlords can fill out. It's relatively simple. It's not that difficult. And it's a great, I guess, website, because it kind of walks you through how to do things. And then they will process and get help out. I mean, there's money, as I pass it to Bob, I think it's 22 million do we have all together in rental money. So there's a lot of help to get out there, but people have to apply for it. Bob?
Yeah, I'm actually pulling up, there it is here. I'm actually going to put it in the chat.
Terrific.
Multitasking here, if I can. There's the website. Actually, we just had this part of our meeting on Wednesday. That this is a major new program. We did spend several $1 million last year working with our community partners, Bucks County Opportunity Council, Housing Link, Legal Aid, to try and keep people. We worked with all the magisterial district justices, because they're the ones who hear the tenant disputes and eviction notices. So we worked with all of them to make sure they were aware that whenever anybody filed for an eviction, a landlord filed for it, they would get information that they could use to pass on to their tenants if they wanted to help the tenants out. This program allows that to happen too. The tenants, the landlords can actually apply for the tenants. If their tenants might not have access to the internet, or there might be language issues, whatever the case may be. The money, I think it ends up being closer to 30 million, or we were over 30 million that we have that we're able to use, and that's actually not counting what's coming in the 122 million. So this was something that was coming out of the last sort of the December relief bill, as well as some state action. And our housing director worked really, really hard with a new software company to make the portal that's much easier to go through. So yeah, I just put that in the chat so people can feel free to reference that.
Great.
Yeah, and just to add on just a little bit, Commissioner Harvie said that, you know, we have not gotten our money yet from this $122 million. My understanding is it's going to take up to 60 days before we start seeing the money come in. And I also understand that it's going to come in two parts. We're going to get half within that 60 days and the other half of the money later on, maybe in the year or maybe later than that. So we haven't got that money yet. And again, we're still trying to get our hands around the guidelines of how we're going to be able to spend that. So we've got a good program in place right now. You know, there's almost $30 million for not only the residents, but the landlords to tap into. And I can assure everyone that as we get this new money and we move along further in the year, that if the money that we presently have runs out, that's certainly money for residents of apartments and landlords. That will be at the top of our list to be able to make sure that we have money available for them moving forward.
This is great news. I mean, one of the issues that I think renters and landlords both ran into in the last round was there were some very extreme limits, not by the county, but by the state and the federal government. And so I understand now there was a question about landlords being able to apply for and receive the checks directly, not only for rent, but also for utilities. So if they have past bills that they haven't been able to pay because of COVID for utilities, that would be included in this round. So I think that's a really great improvement.
Yes.
And more of this money can be used because there was a lot left on the table statewide through the last round.
And we spent all ours.
Oh, great. That's awesome. Good for
We don't leave
you.
money on the table here.
Good for you. Some other questions coming through. You covered the COVID assistance coming from the federal government. We are in an incredibly hot real estate market right now, and it's hot because inventory is so low. So this is driving up prices. And even before this time, we were having an issue with affordability. And this probably is making it worse. And so I would just ask if you have plans, ongoing, efforts to address that affordability issue for residents in Bucks County.
So I think we're probably all champing at the bit to answer that question. So I don't want to take all of it. This is a huge issue. It's one that was front and center, I know for me, for quite a while now. And we have a terrific person in charge of our housing, Jeff Fields, as well as Evan Stone in planning, and they know that this is where we want to go. Initially, we've been talking about we wanted to do inclusionary zoning so that any new developments had to have affordable housing. We still believe that's important. Bob is really gotten good at working on different kinds of ordinances with our planning commission, so I'm sure he'll tackle that. But that doesn't always work because it's such a hammer. So we are also working on some carrots to try to be able to provide municipalities with the incentives to get builders to do some affordable housing. So, they can be low income tax credits, things like that. Just trying to get developers that we can waive certain fees if they'll put in extra housing when they do develop. There was one other thing I wanted to say, just one out of my head. Oh, I just wanted to say, as I was hearing from another realtor today, that typically in a typical year, say Fairless Hills is considered affordable housing. There are 30 houses available there. There's only like 8 right now. I live in Levittown. I mean, I see there's not as many signs up. That is our affordable housing, right? And even that inventory is terribly low right now. Bob?
No, I don't think I can add a whole lot of. It's interesting though. It's I used to think my wife and I bought our first house, and I like to say we drove through the bubble that happened back in the early 2000s, because our first house that we bought, we owned for about 4 years in Bristol Borough, did a little bit of renovation on it. And the first bid that came in when we sold it back in, I think we sold it in 99. The first bid that came in was higher than we were asking for. And I remember like the two of us being very confused that we had no idea. And I even asked the realtor at the time, and she was a realtor. I think that was one of the last houses she had sold. She was retiring and moving south. So she'd been in the business a long time. And we said, aren't they supposed to come in lower than what we're asking for? And she said, I don't know. I guess, I guess they really want your house. And driving from Bristol Borough to Falls Township, 5, 6, 7 miles away, the house we bought it probably under what it should have been sold for. And so I like to say that was sort of the beginning, I guess, of the real estate bubble at that time. And so we it was sort of moving, and we kind of, drove through it, because we got the benefits of it when we sold, and we hadn't hit Falls Township yet. So we ended up, getting in. And then within a very short span of time, we saw how the houses in our neighborhood really almost doubled in price, and which of course was great for us because we were already there. But for a lot of the younger people that were moving in, we'd scratch our heads when we heard about what they were paying for a mortgage, knowing what we're paying, which I'm ashamed to say what I'm paying for a mortgage on the house I'm in. And it's scratching my head. My assistant, who's in his early 30s, college educated, he and his girlfriend are talking about, looking at houses to buy. And he's talking about prices, and he's talking about how much she makes and they make. They're both, both have good jobs. And I'm not really sure how they're going to afford it. And it's, it is difficult for them, and we feel for them. And we know it's a problem nationwide. This is not just here in Bucks County. But certainly we want to be open to all the different kind of possibilities here on how we can, in some cases help some of our, especially the boroughs in the lower end of the county, which have, everything people want. It's walkability, it's the houses are the perfect size for families that are starting out. Transportation networks are often better in the boroughs than they are anywhere else in the county. And so they have everything that people want. And we're just trying to help the boroughs do some economic revitalization so that they, it helps them, make them even more attractive.
Gene?
Yeah, James, just quick, because we were chatting a little bit before we came on with Jamie and Dayna and Pete a little bit. I was telling them what I'm seeing in my neighborhood. I live in Bensalem, not only in my neighborhood, but around Bensalem. I mean, a for sale sign goes up on a house, and they have an open house, and the street is clogged from the number of cars that are parked looking at the house. And I know a little bit personally about this because my daughter, who's a nurse at St. Mary's, she's actually been looking around, and I said it's like a gold rush. One day you've got a number of people bidding on the house, and they're bidding the price up, and I'm sure a lot of this has to do because of the low mortgage rates. And it's a good thing that the mortgage rates are down, but that raises the prices of the house. And I guess it's good for your business that the houses are selling, and they're selling quickly, but there's a great demand, and there's not a supply that meets the demand. So new construction is important not only to the economy here in Bucks County, but to your industry as well. And I think because of the COVID, that a lot of that got stopped or didn't get started back in the last spring and summer. I'm just hoping that new construction picks up. And of course, affordable housing is a big part of what we need here in Bucks County. Diane explained it really, really well. But I understand the challenges you have right now, and I'm hoping this economy picks up, and I hope at some point the demand will meet the supply. So let's hope that happens.
So on the same subject, and I think this will be the last question because I know you all are on a very tight schedule today, but this is a good thing about getting realtors together because you hear new ideas. I don't know if this is new to you, but one segment of the market that is really looking for affordable housing and the available are seniors. They're looking to maybe downsize, for a retirement home. But right now that's not available, enough in the county. So have you had a focus on that segment of the market, more 55 plus developments? Because the suggestion is if seniors have a place to move that's affordable, they'll be selling their homes, which will open the market up a little bit more for everybody else.
Once again, we'll just take turns. I have to say this is an issue of concern to me. I mean, I'm getting there, right? I turned 60 this year, so I'm starting to
I'm there
evaluate
already, Diane.
what I'm going to do. And I live in Levittown, and I look around and say, can I downsize? And the truth is, I really can't, right? There's not too much less that's affordable that's going to be less than that. So I've been thinking, I guess I'll just hire people to do everything for me or something. But I think the problem is we have too many over 55 communities that are the luxury kind of communities. They're not affordable housing. If I were to try to move to the 55 and over communities in Middletown, I would have to take out another mortgage. They're all more than my house is worth. So
Right.
That is a real important thing. I think Bob and Jean could probably even talk to how, as recent as yesterday, we've been dealing with this. Bob?
Yeah, that's so I was going to say it's interesting timing because I don't want to go into detail because it's still very, very early on. But we just the three of us just met with a property owner who's talking about selling off a large chunk of their or leasing off a large chunk of their property for developing. And the original pitch that they kind of very, very early on in the process was clearly what Diane was just referring to. The kind of people who are going to be retiring and moving out of their maybe $1 million homes into $750,000 townhouses and condos. And we did say, well, this is, I'm sure this will look beautiful, but maybe you should be thinking about something more like what you're just talking about, Jamie. Not even just for seniors, but sort of mixed communities where you have homes for younger families and you have homes for older folks and sort of integrating them. We're seeing that across the country. We got our director of our planning commission on, and of course, this is the kind of stuff they do for a living, is track all these kinds of trends across the country, and we're seeing that. So certainly we, as you said, is not a lot. I know, Jamie, you had seen the article about, there's not a whole lot of housing starts going on right now in terms of construction for I think for the obvious reasons, the instability of the economy and the uncertainty about COVID. But when it does pick up, we want to try and do what we can, limited powers that we have, to see that we're focusing on the kind of housing that we really do need here in Bucks County.
Yeah, I think Diane said it very well. I mean, we do need more affordable senior housing instead of having these, very high price communities for seniors. I mean, that would be a big plus. And what else we need that would really help seniors is some type of property tax reform. That's got to come from up in Harrisburg, and they've been talking about it for a long, long time. And I mean, I have my own thoughts on this, and everybody's got a different idea how to do it. But it would be a shift somehow away, mainly from school property taxes to another form of tax. So I don't know if they're ever going to be able to do it, but it's certainly a discussion that it should be happening up in Harrisburg. And I know it happens behind the scenes, but boy, if we could find a way to somehow reduce our property taxes, not only here in Bucks, but across the state. I mean, I think that would be really, really helpful, because I can't tell you in my years as state representatives how many distraught seniors came into my office with their property tax bill and were just absolutely almost in tears that they couldn't pay their property taxes and they had no idea what they were going to do. So property tax reform up in Harrisburg would be a really, really big help.
All right. Well, Dayna, I think we're ready to wrap, because I know the commissioners do have a very tight schedule. So I want to say thank you to each of the commissioners. We should do this more often because some great ideas I think will come out of it. And Dayna, I'll give you the final say on the program.
Thank you for having us too.
Thank you.
Oh, no, thank thank the three commissioners for being with us today. Thank you, Jamie Ridge and SRA, for pulling it all together. And thank you to the Realtor attendees for, participating. We appreciate the engagement and definitely look forward to more of these. Hopefully happier topics, more positive things to come. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a
Take
great
care.
rest of the
Thank
day
you.
and weekend.
Yes,
Thank you.
have a great weekend. Thank you.
Yep.
Take care.
Mhm.